Hello everyone, my name is Carlton Morton and welcome to my branding webinar. Thanks for attending my webinar today. I actually just really like for webinars to be really informal usually. I like for it to be comfortable. I like for you to feel comfortable, whether you're watching from home, you're watching from someone else's home, your boo, your baby, whether you're at work, you might even be in your car. All that matters is that right now in this moment, you're bettering yourself. I appreciate you attending this webinar. I love people who invest in themselves. I love people who ask, hey, how did you get to where you are? What did you do with your brand to get where you are? And how can I make it make sense for myself? Those are the types of individuals I tend to work with. Just a little bit about myself so that you all leave this experience feeling like you know a little bit more about the person that's giving you information. I was born in Louisiana. I am originally from a smaller city in Louisiana with great food, great people, great hospitality. I'm a preacher's kid. I, after college, decided that I would move to a larger city in Louisiana, which was New Orleans. Not after college, actually after high school. For college, moved to New Orleans, and then shortly after moving to New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina happened, and that was absolutely devastating. It was one of the worst experiences to watch people go through. Even though I'm not a New Orleans native, so many people, so many of my loved ones were affected by Hurricane Katrina. So it was just like a rough time in my life. After that, I decided that I would move to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to relocate. A lot of the students in New Orleans were displaced and had to go to schools in surrounding cities. And for me, that school was Southern University. Go Jags, just won the Bayou Classic again. And so after that, I decided that I would move back to New Orleans once it was ready to be reopened, move back. Because my father had passed away while I was living in Baton Rouge and going to Southern, and months after that my aunt passed away. So my best friend was like, hey, move back to New Orleans because it's a lot of things going on. You probably just need to be back where your natural element is. And so I agreed and I moved back. Well, a few months after I moved back, the best friend that asked me to move back to New Orleans passed away from lupus. And like, it was just the worst time ever. So needless to say, I just couldn't take any more of being in that state of mind and being in that environment of like depression and anxiety. So weeks later, I decided that I would move to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta. I got on social media. This is where the whole brand situation comes into place. I got on social media. One of my friends who is an actress and an artist, she was like, oh, there's this website called Twitter. So I'm on Twitter. I get on there. I really don't understand it at first. I'm thinking, okay, let me just pick my best photo. Let me just pick what looks amazing aesthetically. It just always has been instilled in me since birth, just to be the best, just to always polish yourself, make sure that you are presentable. As a preacher's kid, if you can imagine, that's almost like, always having a watchful eye on you. Your parents probably know so many people. So many people are expecting for you to be like this golden child of a person. So that's kind of how my upbringing influenced how I am now with my brand and the polishing of it and everything, because someone is always watching. And you know what? I'm honestly one of those people that says, as it relates to your brand, do what works for you. I hope you all have a notepad out so that you can take notes on things that actually make sense to you and speak to your spirit as it relates to your brand. Do what works for you is one thing that I would like to say, because if you don't do what works for you, you're going to be doing what works for someone else. And guess what? That's only going to last a certain period of time. When I decided that I would move to Atlanta, I wasn't sure what I would do here. I probably for the first 30 days searched websites like Craigslist, Monster.com, jobs, just job websites, job posting websites, doing Google searches, Yahoo searches, every search you could possibly do, looking for a job. I basically found many marketing jobs, those jobs that you go to the office, you're dressed for success, and you get there and it's like a casting call, it's like a cattle call of some sort, and you're sitting in a room with 40 other people, and in walks the company executive who is telling you that you're going to be applying for this job and that the end result, if you're selected, is that you're going to be selling vacuum cleaners from door to door. Those are the types of quote unquote marketing jobs I encountered in Atlanta. Needless to say, I didn't take those opportunities. One day, it was nearing the 30th day of me being in Atlanta, and I decided that I would try something different that I hadn't tried in a while, and that was actually prayer, because I was like, okay, you're either gonna go home or you're gonna figure it out, but obviously you can't figure it out on your own. So something said, just pray. I had to be realistic in my prayers, because I knew that at that particular time in my young adult life, I was not where I should be spiritually. And I'm not trying to preach to you guys or anything like that. I'm really just telling you the truth. And it all ties in this webinar. You'll understand it later, I promise. But at that particular time, something in my spirit just said that I had to pray and that I had to be realistic. Those were the two things that were coming to me. So I knew that if I wasn't praying every day as is, why would I commit to 2 hours or 3 hours of prayer or 5 hours of worship or 7 hours of Holy Communion? Why would I do that? Why would I put myself through that? And why, furthermore, why would I lie to God? So I said, okay, God, I talk to God like he's my homie, because he is. He always looks out. He's loyal. He never turned his back on me. We never stopped being friends, like ever. He never did anything that hurt me. He always did everything that helped me. So I talk to God like he's my homie, right? So I'm like, okay, God, I know that maybe a few hours might not be too realistic. However, how about I commit 10 minutes a day, uninterrupted, no distractions, no television, no radio, no cell phone, no nothing, okay? And so at that particular point in time, I had to be humble when it came to that, because I'm not even sure I had a radio in the room or a television in the room at the time. I had just moved to Atlanta. It had been 30 days. I picked up with all my savings. My mom was helping pay bills that, whatever. But I actually sat there and I said, okay, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna pray, and I'm going to ask God for help. On the third day, a bank called with a banking job. And that was just the best thing. It was wow, prayer actually changes things. Sometimes people give up on their brands. They give up on their dreams. When you think of your brand, is it part of your dream? Because if it isn't, then you're extremely confused. I hear some people say, well, my brand is different from my dream. And I'm like, well, how is your brand different from your dream? Your dream is actually the highest goal up, right? It's like the mountaintop. Your brand is the thing that you start building at ground level. And every time that you go higher and higher and higher and higher, you are fulfilling your dream. Your dream is loading every step that you take towards getting closer to polishing your brand to its full and best potential. You're closer to that dream. I never understand when people tell me that. So that's one thing. If you're going around telling you telling other people when you're networking and when you are having just business conversations and business meetings that you may take, or if you're DMing somebody on social media, or if you're inboxing them, emailing, whatever your mode of communication is, you have to make sure that you never say that your brand is different from your dream, because they're actually cohesive. They work hand in hand. I know that makes sense, because that's just what it is. That's exactly what it is. One thing that I want for you guys to note, that nothing happens overnight, okay? One thing with branding that I feel that people take lightly is the time frame. Sometimes people get very discouraged. They feel like, oh my gosh, like this isn't working out for me. What am I doing wrong? What am I not? Okay, so in this webinar, one of the things that you're gonna also learn is how to make your brand noticeable, how to polish it, how to be the best whatever you're trying to be. Some people are taking this webinar because they want to be an actor. Some people may be taking this webinar because they want to be a singer. Some people taking this webinar because they want to be a model. Some people may be taking it just because they're that entrepreneur who does not know anything about branding or how to push sales, how to polish your brand, how to look attractive to potential clients. I want for you to write this down. Do the work. You have to do the work. Once I felt discouraged in that situation where I didn't have a job, and then 3 days later, this bank calls and says, hey, you have the job. I knew that I would still have to do the work. Not only the work of my quote unquote 9 to 5, but also the work for my brand, for my personal brand. There's a meme that goes around the internet that I always see that says something to the effect of, you know, if you work 8 hours for your boss, then you have to go home and do 8 hours for yourself and for your own personal brand and your own business. I agree with that, but here's the thing. Always work smart. You don't necessarily have to work hard. It's not gonna feel like hard work, but it's gonna feel like hard work to someone who isn't a hard worker. Okay, it's always gonna feel like hard work to someone who is not a hard worker. You have to think about being a hard worker and have to have the endurance of a hard worker, the mindset of a hard worker, the patience of a hard worker, and also the heart, more importantly, the heart of a hard worker. But be wise, be smart in building your brand. When I would sit at the bank, I would, in between customers, sit there on little sticky notes. I wouldn't make it obvious that I was building my dream while sitting on someone else's time clock. I would sit there with sticky notes and I would say, oh my gosh, there's other things that I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then one day, networking is very important because one day, I had networked with a friend on social media who needed a ride to a magazine office in Atlanta. So I ended up dropping my friend off, and my friend said, hey, come to the lobby of this magazine office. I'm gonna introduce you to some people. You should look around. It's like really cool. I go to this magazine office. There's this woman sitting there. She's in the lobby. She's like, hey, aren't you on my Facebook? I'm like, yeah, I'm on your Facebook. She's like, hey, what are you doing in Atlanta? I thought that you were from New Orleans. I said, yeah, I just moved here from New Orleans. She said, well, I'm from New Orleans also. Here's my number. If you need me, let me know. How does this tie into branding? Had I not been who I was on Facebook with a nice, polished, friendly, approachable brand, she would not have approached me. Your brand on social media, which is the #1 marketing tool in the world right now and for our generation and current times, your brand is very important on social media.